Good morning, everybody. It's 10 o'clock on Friday, April 12th. Thank you for being here with us today. I'm Geoff Bruskin. I'm the founder and managing partner of White Tiger Connections. We are a consulting firm. We specialize in helping CPA and accounting firms to prepare for and actually transition in their exit, retirement, succession plan, sale of their practice. We also work with buyers. So today's webinar is going to be talking about some of the strategic things that sellers can do as you are preparing to sell your practice, but you are not yet in a sales situation. So if you have a little bit of runway in front of you, this is a perfect webinar for you to listen to. Um, and so we're going to just jump right in and start talking about some strategies. If anybody has any questions, you can go ahead and drop them right in the chat. We're scheduled for an hour today, but I definitely don't think we're going to use all of that time. I am going to pack as much into this as I can. So, what are some things that sellers can do? Well, the first thing is you want to put yourself in the position of a buyer. If you were thinking about buying a practice, what are some of the things that would be meaningful for you to consider? Some of the things that I see is buyers really like practices that are turnkey, right? So that irrespective of the seller, the practice can continue running on its own to the fullest extent possible. And that's probably the overarching, most important thesis statement that you as a seller want to have in your mind, or a future seller, as you're preparing to, to make that journey. So how does that actually happen? Well, that's a question that every firm owner needs to ask themselves. Based on the position that we're in today, what do I need to do so that I'm building an organization, an infrastructure, a client base, a staff base, technology systems, all of these things underneath me so that the practice is able to run on a day-to-day basis without me needing to be intimately in the business. Now, that's very hard for a lot of CPA and accounting firm owners to do. What I see is that a lot of accounting firm owners are almost accidentally business owners. Either you've been disillusioned working in other environments that haven't treated you the way that you deserve to be treated, or people just asked you to start doing their taxes, or you had this idea to start doing bookkeeping, or you were formerly a CFO in a corporate context, and now maybe you're doing fractional CFO work, or any combination or different iteration of this, right? So if you've kind of accidentally become a business owner, chances are that you are directly yourself either executing on most of the client engagements, or you are at least integrally positioned as like the fundamental cog in the machine because of a certain practice area specialization, which is really yours. And then all things kind of flow from the nucleus that is you in your business. This is very common. It's common whether you're running $100,000 business or a $10 million business. And I have clients in both situations who are, if they were to, God forbid something was to happen to them, or if they were to take an extended vacation, the business would fall down. And that's what we want to avoid. We want to figure out for you specifically, how do we build an organization that functions better with you sitting in the cockpit or the crow's nest, right? And helping to enhance and nurture the whole enterprise, but it's not dependent on you to continue performing at least at a baseline level. So, you know, how you do this, again, it's not a one size fits all model. Um, I think, there are several categories that you can think about attacking one at a time. And we'll address the challenges first, right? So the difficult thing, let's talk about the categories. The categories are: you need talent, you need staff, you need contractors, human capital element that is going to maintain the operations of your business irrespective of you, right? So human capital is the first thing. Of course, in order to have human capital, on the other side of it, you need clients, because without the revenue that the clients are generating, you can't pay the human capital. So human capital is one, clients is three. Number two is you need the workflow, the systems, the technology, the standard operating procedures so that the human capital and the clients, everything is happening as smoothly as possible. Um, the challenge is that it's very difficult to do all of these three things simultaneously. And I think everybody who's watching or listening to this recording knows that already. So what are some things that you can do to kind of bolster up all three of those things at the same time? Well, that depends a little bit on what the stage of your business is. If you're at 100,000 in revenue, all of your focus should really be on net new client acquisition, and generating more gross revenue for your practice. Because the more gross revenue you have when you're small, the more wiggle room you can develop to play with number two and number one, those workflow technology operational systems, number two, and number one is that human capital element. So I would say anybody really who's under 500,000 in gross revenue, you guys should be thinking about net new business development. That's the single most important thing that you can think about. Second most important thing is, where is the opportunity in your existing practice to upsell, raise prices, extract more revenue from the clients who you're currently serving? And this is a little bit of a mental switch, right? And it's hard to do, especially if you're late in career, if you're already considering a sale. But the truth is that when you charge clients more, at least a fair market price, the better clients are going to stay. The clients who are taking up 80% of your mental energy and only generating 20% of your revenue, I know it's cliche, but it's true. They're going to leave, and your practice is going to feel a lot more spacious, where you can generate more of that net new business development. Um, and the more gross revenue that you're deriving as you get, and there are no exact numbers here, right? This could happen at 300 in revenue, it could happen at 500, it could happen at 900. You're going to see that there starts to be some wiggle room, which is created, where you can play with some of that excess capital to hire a senior level staff, or to build out a more robust operating structure internally, for efficiency's sake. Now, I definitely suggest that you hire a consultant, or hire somebody who is an expert in shepherding you through the process, because you, the business owner, is so caught up in the client service on a day-to-day basis. It's very difficult to see the forest through the trees, especially if you're under 1 million in revenue. Let's talk about the inverse of that. If you're at 10 million in revenue, um, I have one such client in California right now, who's about that size and is in the same situation. He is core to his practice, the specific practice area specialization that drives not all of that 10 million in revenue, but the most significant portion of that revenue. He is the only one in his practice who can do the very senior level work in that subject matter area. So for him, it's on the opposite end. Instead of driving net new business development or extracting more gross revenue from his practice, he needs to think very seriously about staff. He needs to replace himself, right? Because if he's still operating in the business on a day-to-day basis, he's not going to be able to step back into more of that executive position and look at the company through a balanced lens, and see where the company needs his attention in an executive capacity to scale intelligently. Um, so on the other hand, if you're in the middle, right? And again, I really want to emphasize, it's not all about your revenue. It's not about the number of clients that you have. Every firm is completely unique, and based on where you are in your life cycle, what kind of the right strategic chronology for you to focus on these three things is going to be, so that you can step back into more of that executive position. Which again is what buyers want, right? That's what we're talking about here. Um, but let's take the intermediate example, right? You're 2 or 3 million in revenue. You have some freestanding cash flow in the business. You have some staff, but either your EBITDA isn't where you want it to be, or you're getting pulled into the operations on a regular basis. Maybe you have staff, but they're not at the level of seniority that you want. Maybe you have clients, but they're not at the caliber that you want. We see a lot of firms like this. And for firms like this in this kind of intermediary class, it's really that second variable that you want to focus on, right? The workflow, the operations, the processes, because you have a lot of the right makeup already. But some of the inefficiencies, they really exist in the GUI intermediate middle office layer of your firm. Again, hiring a consultant, somebody who's an expert specializing in this in the accounting firm context, is a great thing to do, because they are going to be able to come up with a roadmap for you, so that you can envision what the step-by-step process is. And then you need to allow them to do their thing, right? I think the hardest thing that I see for accounting firm owners is to step back and to allow a consultant to actually help them, especially if it has to do with finagling the guts of your firm. I mean, that's a very intimate thing, and it's something which obviously affects you profoundly because you're the one, as the business owner, who is the most dependent on the organization to make it so that you are not completely overwhelmed with supporting a multi-million dollar practice. Um, so, and there's every different iteration of this, right? If you're 900,000 in revenue, I've seen firms that have, kind of a mature size from a client growth perspective. That third category is, pretty much where it needs to be. But on the other hand, they're missing either that second layer, or the first layer. They're just, the business owner is doing everything themselves, and they really need to spring for the senior manager who can help them to do what they do. And that way they can step back into more of an executive role and think about, beginning to go to market and thinking strategically about a sale. I've seen firms that are 10 million in revenue that have a healthy talent infrastructure and that have a healthy operating infrastructure, but really just need to grow. And maybe they've grown through acquisition and they don't have the organic marketing components in place. Maybe they've inherited a practice from their dad, or their mom, and again, the net new business development isn't what they want it to be, or maybe they are not getting clients that are at the caliber they need to get them at. So again, it has nothing to do with revenue. I just wanted to give that as some examples. Either your talent, your operations, or your net new business development and your revenue, your revenue growth, right? Which could also come from your internal systems. These are the three things that buyers want to see: mature systems in place across category 1, category 2, and category 3. When you have those systems in place, buyers are going to look at your practice very favorably. And a firm like mine that does brokerage in the accounting space is going to be able to get you the maximum valuation based on the class that you are in. And that's a topic for another webinar. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll stick around for a minute or two, and quite often people don't have questions, and that's okay. You can always reach out to me afterwards. Website is www.whitetigerconnections.com. Email is Geoff, Geoff, at whitetigerconnections.com. And if you really want to get a hold of me, I'm available by cell as well. I really like to add value back to people who are hustling like me. I am not an accounting firm owner. I could not do my taxes or my books to save my life. So I have a tremendous respect for all of you guys and gals who do. All right, everybody. Have a terrific weekend. Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.